Hello everybody, Markus here, and I'm really excited to have you on this one because I will be sharing a cinematic music track I actually just wrote yesterday, challenging myself to only use 3 tracks in total. So here we go. So on this track I started with a piano first, because I wanted to have the piano take on the centric role in the cinematic piece, and I basically started laying out some basic chords on the piano, and I found 2 that I really liked, like this kind of emotional feel going from the one chord to the other chord, and then I added some additional variations onto the chords, and also this kind of high ostinato on top. This kind of figure, and then I added some more chords, and then like just this big roll up. So, and for the piano sound I basically used native instruments nor pure, and let's just hear it without the effects. It's just like a really basic piano sound. I increased the low end and the high end a little bit. Then I added a black hole reverb, just to give it this kind of big, epic, cinematic feel. And then to make the reverb tail stick out a little bit more and just to control the dynamics, I added a compressor after the black hole reverb, and then I added some multiband compression, just upwards compressing lows and highs and then downward compressing the mids a little bit, to give it also a little bit more of clarity. Challenging yourself, only working with very little tracks in the beginning, like piano and some basic orchestral layers to get the arrangement and the melody and all, like the orchestration actually done, can be really helpful. So I can really recommend this approach if you find yourself getting distracted really fast in choosing sounds and thinking about all the kind of layers and effects you want to add. So this kind of challenge can be really helpful for this. Next up, for the orchestra, I used the orchestral tools to the Orchestra from Metropolis Arc 0. I added the high woodwinds just to get a little more emphasis, accents on the woodwinds on the high range, and then I also added this Tom Holkenborg's percussion patch on the lows, just to be able to lay down some cinematic hits. For the orchestra, I basically started with adding the root notes of the chord progression to the orchestra as well, to have the basses basically playing the roots. And then I went for a melody complementing the piano melody. And then basically I went from the root to the third, and then basically up to the fifth, and getting this kind of really nice emerging secondary melody towards the piano, which together sounds like this. And I'm also playing a lot with expression and modulation to give this orchestra this kind of dynamic feeling. So I basically then here also added some variations to the melody line. I made sure that I get like voice leading, which is not basically the same. So when the top melody goes up, the secondary melody of the orchestra basically goes downward to get this kind of voice separation. And then basically I also added this kind of ostinato pattern, and then I implemented this kind of big string run leading into the main chorus section right here. And I also automated the track tempo. So basically I was starting at 95 BPM, then going up to 100, staying constant. And on the last piece, before we get to the main chorus, I basically on the run automated the tempo to get like to 110, I guess, 115 BPM. And on the orchestra, I basically put on some orchestral hits down below, just complementing the orchestral composition. On the main chorus, I basically then went for this massive brass string melody with this kind of epic feel and the ostinatos on top, which then also get this kind of sparkly little details from on the high woodwinds that I added to the main full patch. And I was actually really surprised how well it basically sounded just using one patch. Of course, like there could be so much more details in the dynamic control of the different sections. And I somehow really feel that like the strings and brass, they just like melt together to this one cohesive thing, and everything feels like playing a lot of unisono. But like, nevertheless, I think for quick composing, it's really helpful to just use this kind of like full patch with the whole orchestra and just like add every section in one patch and just get your arrangement done before wasting time or using time to split up all the different voicings into different patches and get out of this kind of creative flow. So I think it can really help to get you stick with your creative flow, to just use like one layer, put all of your arrangement in there, and then afterwards spending time like voicing it properly and stuff like that. And on the third layer, I chose an instrument library from Orchestra, the augmented strings. And I basically just loaded up the standard initial pattern, which is the beautiful swells. And I found it sounding quite nice. Let's just deactivate the effects a little bit. It was like, oh, it's nice feeling, nice flair. And then you basically have the possibility to basically adjust organic and synthetic layers. And you have basically some kind of motion here, which I really liked, giving us this kind of rhythmic feeling that I needed for this track. So I went for the full synthetic layer on this patch. I think I also did some tweaks and adjustments in the attack and in the ADSR basically of the patch. And then because I actually could only use 3 tracks, I needed some like transition effects and like variations between the intro and the main chorus section. So I used a lot of automation. So what I did for here was adding another plugin, also from Orchestra. It's this EFX Motions plugin. It's basically an automated auto filtering plugin where you can basically have filters, filter curves. It's basically, you have a lot of envelopes that you can apply to filters like noises, drive and volume, and basically give your sounds this kind of rhythmic flair and feeling. And then I automated the dry wet signal of this plugin right here. So to get a difference between the intro and the main chorus section. So I have now activated this plugin. So we will basically dial in. You will hear this kind of increase in pulse dynamic, especially when we get to the main chorus. It's like just this like really pulsing rhythmic that feel that I really liked if I bypass it. It's just much more constant, and here it's really accentuated, giving really this kind of rhythmic feeling to the track, what I really liked. And speaking of automation, I also used a lot of automation on the rest of the tracks because I was not able to use another layer for transitional effects, so I needed to use what's already on my layers. And what I did basically for the piano, here I added, let's hear the piano layer in solo. I basically automated the filter close for the low pass basically. So I just basically opened up the filter on the piano roll or piano run. And then also I automated a black hole reverb mix basically just to give this more increased dense reverb atmosphere on the run. And what I also did on the orchestra, I pretty much used the same concept for the orchestra. I closed the filter, the low pass filter, and then basically opening it up again. So you have this dynamic closing of presence and closing down the section, then opening it up again, together with this kind of string run, this really massive string run, which just gives this impression of like everything opening up and going into this main chorus section right here. So if we hear everything together, and also take notice of the track increased BPM tempo. Just to give this kind of change in between the beginning, main chorus, and then the end section of the track, and to get some variations in. And also here I closed the filters a little bit and opened them up again, just to have this kind of variation and make this kind of string and piano run just feeling like it would open up like a lot, like this kind of magical, sparkly feeling that you will basically get by reducing the presence and the high end and then opening it up again. And on the main chorus section, I then basically just put in some cinematic drum patterns, just giving it more kind of rhythm, and then also like complementing on the synth path. And for the synths, I mostly used the bass root notes of the chord progression and then added this main melody on top to give this kind of like additional texture to the main melody and just make it shine out a little bit more. And then on the outro, we basically have the build down, like in the build up section, where we also just use the main root notes for the synths. So for the mastering chain, at first I reduced the sideband of the lows to get everything mono-compatible and not so wide in the low end. Then I also used the equalizer with some compression on the lows and the mids and some upward compression in the highs to get a little bit more clarity. I also used a general compressor for just overall compressing my bass signal. And I'm using an equalizer curve to basically adjust the high end a little bit and to get some final equalization going. And last but not least, I'm limiting my track. Yeah, so this was basically my master chain. I'm pretty much happy how this track turned out from just using these 3 layers. And I could totally see myself doing a full track out of this challenge track. So let me know in the comments if you think I should make a full track out of this challenge. Let me know if this is a concept that could also be helpful for you. And if you already tried it in the past, then let me know what your experience is using this kind of concept on working on arranging and composing your tracks. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more music breakdowns and tutorials. And now go out, create some awesome music, and see you on the next one.